Guys, another series for hey guys, another episode for Best Angel Stories 2014. I kind of have to make this quick because I have to review for the spelling bee. But by the way, next episode is Flash Flood by Priscilla Oldman. Last time we read, last time I forgot the name. Last time we read Who's Got the Wheel, and now we're reading Flash Flood. It's a special bonus, but it's still episode 11, the best angel stories of all time. It had been an unusually wet June, the morning of the 16th. It was drizzling, but the weatherman had predicted just showers, so we had no reason to expect anything more than an ordinary rainy day. My husband Ruben and I were driving from Denver to our home in Castle Rock, Colorado. We were still a bit somber and saddened, for we had gone to Denver for my brother's funeral. Increasingly heavy rain seemed to darken over spirits even worse. Driving south on Highway 85, visibility became poor, and the steady accumulation of water on the road made for slow driving. So we realized this was not an ordinary rainstorm. A fierce wind, now seeming almost at the intensity of a tornado, began pushing our car back and forth along the highway. I gripped the car door as rocks washed onto the road, making things even more treacherous. It was taking all of Ruben's skill as a driver to keep from hitting the rocks, some of which were as large as wash tubs. Wow. Okay. The rocks, which were oh wait, never mind. As we gripped along, the water rose and soon was up to our hubcaps. Ahead of us, cars began sliding off the road, and one by one, ending up stuck in the sand of the road shoulder. Afraid of stalling, we kept going. Suddenly, a huge wall of water came crashing down upon us from the hills beside the road. Ruben and I looked at each other in terror as the car was lifted up and swept backward. Turning quickly, I could see Plum Creek, usually a mild, meandering stream, but now a roaring torrential mud flow directly behind us. "Ruben," I screamed above the roar of the water. "We're going into the flood." He clutched my hand, and together we murmured a prayer as we prepared to face certain drowning. As we braced ourselves, our car came to a sudden halt. Looking back, I could see we had rammed into a telephone pole only a few feet in front of the raging creek. I breathed a sigh of relief, and we started to get out of the car, but the doors wouldn't open. The car had sunk so far into the sand that the doors were jammed. I gasped as I looked down. Our legs were caught too, pinned in the sand that was rapidly filling the inside of the car. Terrified and helpless, Ruben and I could only sit there and let the sand pack us firmly to our waists. Meanwhile, the water both outside and the car, outside and inside the car, rose higher and higher. There was no use shouting for help. The roaring of the flood muffled everything. As darkness set in, the blackest night I've ever seen. The freezing air made Ruben and me shiver uncontrollably. With the lower parts of our bodies locked tight in the sand, the water continued to creep up to our necks. We held our heads as high as possible and tilted our noses back above the water. Although I tried to keep my lips tightly closed, I found myself swallowing some of the muddy slime. "Oh God," I prayed. "Please help us, please." Incredibly, just as all seemed lost, the water level began to drop, and the noise of the flood seemed to lessen as well. A sense of calm came over us, but then Another problem presented itself, adding to our difficulties. In our tightly sealed prison, our oxygen was now nearly gone and the door handles were buried in wet sand. Reuben and I searched for some kind of tool to break a window, but we couldn't find anything and time was running out for us. In that moment of complete isolation, we knew we were probably going to die. I guess this is it, I told Reuben. Yes, he answered, but we had a good life together. God has given us a good life, I thought, but he had always given us courage too. Courage to fight and not give up. I thought of the 46th Psalm, a favorite too. A favorite of mine. It said something about courage, didn't it? I began to say it out loud from memory. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth will be removed. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. Verses 1 and 2 KJV. The words sounded so appropriate that I began repeating them, and as I did, I felt a kind of presence enter the car, a presence that seemed once again to remove our fear. Just seconds later, a small stone shattered the windshield. Large rocks had been hitting the car all through our ordeal. Fortunately for us, not breaking the glass at the peak of the flood, which would have drowned us. Now the small stone made a hole, not a big one, but large enough to give us breath and hope. A few minutes later, we heard voices being virtually buried alive, but we couldn't tell where they were coming from. Through chattering teeth, Reuben joined me as I again said the 46th Psalm. Was something about to happen? I don't know what a guardian angel looks like, but when a man suddenly peered into our car, he surely seemed heaven sent. Seeing our situation, the man ran for help, and the next thing we knew, a winch was being hooked to the front of our car. A grinding noise followed as our car top was pulled back like a can of sardines. Two men, one of them our angel, climbed into the car and carefully dug us out with shovels, then took us to the hospital in Englewood, Colorado. At the hospital, we were washed repeatedly, given warm blankets, hot tea, and told that eastern Colorado had been hit by the worst flood in its history. The hospital was filled with injured people. The next morning, we awoke without any bad effects, and as soon as the road was opened, we returned to Castle Rock for a week afterward. Though not ill, I went about my household duties in a sort of daze. Finally, one morning, I came out of it. Reuben, I said, it's time for us to go and buy a new car. He chuckled. I was just waiting for you to wake up. I put on my raincoat, the one I had worn in the flood. Sticking my hand into the pocket, I felt something. I pulled out a stem with 2 leaves and a tiny, perfect white flower. How did it get there? Could the filthy floodwater have washed it into my pocket? It seemed so strange. My thoughts flashed back to that day. The telephone pole in just the right place, the huge rocks that hit our windshield without breaking it, the very small stone that broke the glass to give us needed air, the water at our nose level receding just in time, and finally that man, our guardian angel, who came at the crucial moment. Were those events just a long time of coincidences? I looked down at the little flower in my hand, and I knew they weren't. The events were miracles. God's miracles. He had been with us all along. He had given us strength and refuge when we needed it. And He had given us the biggest miracle of all, courage to face death itself without being afraid. Alright guys, that is it for today's story. Hope you guys liked it. If you did, smash the like button. And we've got a new episode coming up called Moving Train by Virginia Blake, as told to Joan Wester Anderson. And yeah, I hope you guys like that last story. If you did, smash the like button and subscribe. Road to 2,000. And I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.